Jesse's just wondering how we're going to start this off, with a flying jump kick off the marver, or cartwheel, handstand. What? Just wear your safety glasses.
Are we good? All right, let's start.
We're not. It's good. I know when we're good, okay? We'll start when Brad says we'll start, okay? Thank you. All right, we're good. We're live. Welcome to the Corning Museum of Glass and our hot glass demonstration here in the amphitheater. We have a special demonstration for you today. We have our Bring the Heat demonstration, which is a fun one. I'll explain more about that later, but your gaffer for this Bring the Heat is everyone's favorite glassblower, Jesse Rasid. What do you say we give him a nice big round of applause? Glassblower, lead technician, educator. He does it all. And today he's going to be making a beautiful piece for you. This is a patchwork design, or a pizzato. He made that up. A beautiful piece. This is going to be in calmo vase, so it's going to have this pizzato patchwork, quiltwork design at the top, and then a solid red, I believe it's red, at the bottom. So this is our Bring the Heat demonstration, and this is a demonstration we're doing. Look at this. He's going to start a collar. He's got to pick this glass up on the pipe. So he just started a little bubble, popped it, and now the blowpipe is hollow all the way through, and it has this massive glass that he will roll up this beautiful patchwork pattern onto the blowpipe. So he's going to work on that. So this demonstration, we've done 5 of these this summer, and it is a collaboration with the shops. So this is a unique demonstration where this piece, when it comes out of the annealing oven, if everything looks good and everything is fine, can be purchased. So that's something that you can take home with you from your visit, or say you're watching at home. I believe it goes online. You could purchase it from anywhere in the world through our shops. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as well a little later on. I'm going to introduce the team. We have George Kennard, who will be helping Jesse out. Yep. My name's Catherine. I'm here for you. If you have questions, comments, let us know. That goes for you, I believe, at home. I don't know if we have anyone. Yeah, awesome. So if you have questions at home, let us know, and we'll get those answered. And we have Brad, who's working the cameras down here on the floor, part of our amazing AV staff. Yes. And got a good team today. So this should be very exciting. This is a beautiful piece. We have an example of one of these pieces of Jesse's over here on the other gas cart. George said he's got the whole thing squeezed together. So Jesse pulled this cane. He's been pulling this cane for weeks. He's, pulls a little bit of cane here and there, and then he's chopped up this pattern and laid it out. So he's got dark forest green cane. He's got a sea blue, red, orange, white. It's really beautiful. Right now it's going to look very orange, cherry red, dark, very different. This is a very colorful piece. So this is the roll-up. We call it a cane or a Marini roll-up. So look at it. He just rolled it right up. He's going to take these tweezers and start to bring the ends together. So slowly touching one end to the other. It's a nice shot. Sticking the 2 ends together, and eventually he'll go in for a little heat so that it rolls up nicely. But you can see from that pie divider, he got a perfect measurement. He's going to brush off any kiln wash that was on that kiln shelf to keep the glass from sticking to the kiln shelf. Hot glass, I don't know if you know this, but hot glass is very sticky. We always think of glass as being a hard, cold, sharp material, but when it's hot, it's sticky, it's gooey. It can still be sharp, but it's very sticky, gooey, and soft while it's hot. And so to keep it from sticking to that kiln shelf, there's just a little bit of kiln wash on there, or a little bit of a release so that it doesn't stick to the kiln shelf. George is going to heat that up, and Jesse's going to step outside the bench and bring the two ends together. This pattern will come together, and once it's all fused and melted down together, it'll be really hard to tell where that pattern came together because of the patchwork quilt-like design that he's chosen. So there it is. Now we've got it rolled up. He's got it rolled up. Beautiful roll up. He's going to wipe off the marver, get any dust, dirt, frit off the marver because we don't want anything to stick to this beautiful pattern. And he's going to use this metal table or marver to roll and get everything smoothed out and really pushed together well. So here he goes. He's just going to roll that. This is Emily. If you follow us on social media, Emily's behind all or most of it. And she's always popping in and taking some good shots and getting everybody excited for what we're doing here at the museum, in the amphitheater, at the studio. All of it. So he's going to roll this, smoothing everything out, getting nice and even. This will become the top of the vessel. So just like the vase over there on the other gas cart, this will become the top or the opening of the vessel, and he's going to create an encolmo or join two bubbles together. So this morning we only have a short hour. See, an hour seems like a good amount of time, but when you're making a piece like this, you actually need quite a bit more time than an hour. So he had to do some prep work. So we even started fusing these tiles or these canes and marinis together about 15 minutes ago. And the cup that he made this morning that he'll join to the bottom of this is in another oven. So we have many ovens on the floor here, the garage that he pulled the canes out of, the pickup oven that the cup's in. And we're going to put everything together. But there it is. Look at that beautiful pattern. What do you think? We've got canes, marinis. So canes are the long bits of glass that we pull to create stripes in the glass. But then if you take that cane and you cut off the little ends of it and create like little pieces with the dissection of that, you can create what's called marini. So you can create marini with rings or concentric rings or millefiori, the little flowers that you find in paperweights and on vessels. So there's lots of different ways to make marinis and canes, but he's chosen a combination of the two. And like I said, these colors, they're looking very orange, red. You can see some of the whites, but he's got light blue, he's got dark green, orange. You've got the little pieces? Yeah, he's got a whole box. Pull some of these out. He's going to use the marver, so I'll carry it over here. Just put it on. He cleaned off the marver. I'm going to set this box there, yeah. So you can see a nice light blue, some orange, dark forest green, lapis blue, canary yellow, white, red. It's a nice coral red. So this is going to be a very colorful piece. All of our different colors in glass are made by adding different metal oxides, salts, and chlorides to the glass. So gold makes a ruby red, iron makes green, manganese makes purple, cadmium, selenium, tin, titanium, they all change the color of the glass. But in this box, you see hours and hours of prep work. So he pulled all these canes and chopped them up and took many hours worth of work. So this is a very a laborious piece that Jesse's making. So he's just rolling it, getting them all fused together, rolling nice and even. He rolls back and forth. If he were to kind of hold it in one spot, those would start to twist up. So to keep canes very straight and even takes a lot of concentration, and he has to be mindful of keeping this pipe turning nice and even, rolling it and shaping it, cooling it nice and even. But with 32 years of experience, he's going to make this look very easy. It's actually going to be quite deceiving. You'll say, "Oh, he just rolled it up and then he rolled it on the marver." It's going to look a lot easier than it actually is when you see him working. George also has, over 30 years of experience. So the team now has, what you're seeing is 60 plus years of experience on the floor. This is a little plug on the bottom. So the end is open, and so if he wants to inflate this or blow it up any further, kind of have to close off the end. Closing off the end by squeezing it would distort that pattern. So creating this little patty and plugging up that hole will allow him to blow and inflate this bubble to get it to the size and shape that he wants. So bring the heat. This is a collaboration with our friends in the shops. Like I said, this is one of the very few opportunities that you can watch a piece be made and then actually take it home with you. So as soon as this comes out of the annealer, we check it. We'll hand it over to the shops, and they'll put it online and put it on display here at the museum. And hopefully this will go home with someone who loves it. Just going to cut a little bit of that off. We did a few live streams this summer, a few Bring the Heats, and so Katie Hubbs made a piece which is online now. You can find that on the shop's website or here in the shops. She made a beautiful tall white cane piece. So you can find that in the shops. We have a question from online. Yeah, so the question was, is it normal to have this big of a marver? No, it's not necessary. Let's put it that way. So you could, it's normal. Most hot shops will have like a fairly big marver, especially hot shops that have 1 or 2 holes. So glory holes. So these are the reheating ovens, these 2 ovens. So the bigger the shop, usually the bigger the table, but you wouldn't need it. We don't even need this table. We could use other shaping tools. So say we didn't have this very big marver, Jesse could still make this piece. He could make it with a little tiny marver. We've got a couple little tiny marvers. This is a shop with lots of tools and all the bells and whistles. So we have the big marver. We also have, look at that pattern. We also have 2 small marvers. We have a marver out back. We could bring 4 or 5 marvers out here. We don't necessarily need them, but with a big shop like this, it's nice to have. We have this big one. We have a big jumbo reheating oven. We wanted to make a space that anyone could come and feel comfortable making their work, even if it was really big, large work. That's why we have a lot of ovens on the ends of the stage here for cooling, for slow cooling. This piece, when Jesse's finished, is going to have to go into a slow cooling oven. Can't cool hot glass at room temperature, so it has to be cooled slowly over a period of time. The thicker the work, the longer that cycle is. So we don't necessarily need these big annealing ovens either, but if we wanted someone to come and make work and then they made very big work, we'd need all that space. So Here he goes. He's going in for a dip of clear glass. That's also why he plugged up the end. He knew he was going to gather over this. And so he put that little plug on there to plug it up. Now he's going to use a pipe cooler. People ask us all the time, do these pipes get hot? Yes, they do. Very hot. And so we have this tool here called a pipe cooler. It just pumped some cold water up into the trough. And now he can hold the pipe closer to the glass. Yeah, we got another question from online, and that's where do we get our glass? We are currently using oceanside glass, and it comes from Mexico. They melt the silica sand, the soda ash, the limestone, and all the other ingredients. They melt it into a form of glass called cullet. So it's already been melted once. It comes to us in a little pillow or pocket of glass called cullet. So cullet has a shorter melt time, so we can throw it in at night and work with it in the morning. But there are quite a few companies that make batch, which is the powder form of those raw ingredients. And there's a few companies that make cullet, but at the moment we are melting oceanside nuggets from Mexico. Yep. So he's got a big, beautiful, clear gather on that. Once you add that big, clear gather on there, you're going to magnify. That's going to act as a lens and magnify that beautiful pattern below it. Here he's using, this is a tool. Any guesses what this tool is made of that he's shaping the glass that's over 2,000 degrees with in the palm of his hand? Yes, you? Newspaper! Yes. You might find it very strange that he's shaping glass in the palm of his hand using not just any newspaper, the local newspaper, of course, folded up, soaked in water to shape that glass right in the palm of his hand. It's one of our favorite tools because it is soft and flexible. All the other tools, the marver, the big marver here in the middle, is hard and rigid, cold. The wooden tools, they're not as hard and rigid, but they come with one shape. So that gives us that Q-tip shape. And so the paper is nice because we can shape it with our hands, and it's nice and soft. So we can shape the glass and not steal as much heat. So he's getting his tools ready as George goes in for a quick reheat, getting this glass hot and soft once again. There's a nice view with the light coming through. So he's going to go in. Now he's going to open this back up. Now that he's got that gather on there, he can open up the tip again, using the tweezers to spread open the glass. And that also kind of pushes it, makes it thin. And then eventually it'll become so thin that he can just stick those tweezers right through the thin part. And it's going to leave a hole. It's kind of like burrowing a hole into the glass. But I think it shows you just how soft and gooey this material is. There's a nice view from the floor. There we go, he's popped it open. Now he's going to trim back to the pattern. So he's going to cut the glass with shears. Yep, have any of you cut glass with shears before? I know one of you has, one or two of you. Don't want to admit it. Because I see some glass makers in the crowd. I know you've cut glass, maybe you're just not paying attention to me. That's okay. But you can cut through the glass with shears. It's kind of soft and spongy. The tricky part is getting in there and cutting at the same rate as you're turning and fast enough that your fingertips don't become too hot. So here he goes. He's going to pull it. call this pulling and trimming. So he's pulling the glass straight and thin. And watch this. He'll get in there with those shears. Dipping his hand in a bucket of water will cool his fingertips off, and he'll trim away. Isn't that just fun to watch? Just like cutting glass. It's gooey, soft. But he had to work quick because it goes from a soft, gooey material to a material that's hard, rigid, and brittle in a matter of seconds. So he's going to warm up these jacks, these metal tools. Sometimes we like to warm up the steel tools a little bit before we use them. Anytime you touch the glass with anything metal or cold, it's gonna kind of freeze up a little bit. And the idea is to keep it hot and soft, to work with it for a longer period of time. So sometimes warming up those metal jacks will give us a longer working time. So he's going to go in with the blades of those jacks. He's going to use a wooden board on the lip to push it flat. This is going to create a nice flat edge that they can then add the red cup to. So you can see that wood catching right on fire. That gives you a good idea of how hot that glass is right near the most sensitive part of his arm. That's why he's wearing this heat-resistant sleeve, because it is very hot. Sitting at that bench, we don't need to tell Jesse how hot that is. He knows. He can feel it on his face, his arm, his chest. And so we'll use wooden tools and those heat-resistant sleeves just to shield us from the heat. It's just a little bit of protection. We don't wear gloves. It'd be hard to turn the pipe. I don't know if you've ever done anything with gloves on. If you tried to use your phone or type an email or tie your shoes even with gloves on. It's difficult. Same thing with blowing glass. It would be hard to turn these pipes. It would be hard to use these tools. But there's also very few materials that you could use to make a glove that wouldn't melt or burn this close to the glass. So we do have leather gloves that we can use for sculpting or close work, but they tend to shrivel up from the heat. Synthetic materials would melt. So it would be, even if we did want to wear gloves, it would be tricky. So George is going to warm up this pickup box that has the Encalmo cup in it, the red cup. So he's going to, right now it's holding at like 980. He's going to turn it up to about 1050. And that way we can safely pull it out of that 1,000 degree oven and introduce it into the 21 degree oven. If we take it and it's too cold and we put it into the 2100 degree oven, it could crack and break apart because the temperature difference would be too great. Regular soda lime glass does not tolerate that heat, that thermal temperature change like borosilicate glass or Pyrex would. So he's straightening it out using the paper. George stays on the lip with the wooden board to make sure that the lip, we want to join these two cups together, and we want them to be as smooth and as straight and even as possible. That way it'll go together seamlessly. You can see the piece on the gas cart here, the Pizzato piece that Jesse made previously. It has a really nice, even connection from the Encalmo cup to the pattern work. How are we doing on questions? Doing all right? You let me know if you have any questions. We want to get your questions answered. Jesse has other work in the shops as well. So if you go to our, here visiting at the museum, you can just walk out the back of the amphitheater and you're in our shops. And we have a large collection of local and international glass to choose from. And Jesse has a few things in the shops. Up here on this case is a few examples of the pieces that Jesse sells in our shops. The bubble vase, the amphora vase, a nice optic twist bowl, and of course everyone's favorite, pumpkins. Our seasonal pumpkins. Some of them are out. I don't know if all of them are out, but some of them are out. And then when this piece comes out of the oven, into the shops it'll go. So we're excited for that. And if you aren't here at the museum, you could follow the shops on Instagram or Facebook to see when that piece will be online and for sale. Looks like George is getting ready to make a punty to pull the cup out of the oven. I'm going to jump over there and see if I could be of any help. In the meantime, stand by. We'll just make sure that lip stays straight and even. He's got a set of calipers. He knows he took a measurement of the cup that he made earlier, so he knows he's got to make this one that width so that it'll join together and match up really nicely. But look at those beautiful pattern work. Nice. Ross is going to take a nice selfie with you there, Jesse. Yusi says hi. Nice. What's nice about doing this is we can watch our glass blower friends from anywhere in the world. It's like we're sitting here in the amphitheater. Yusi used to take classes here at the studio, but he also came over here and worked with us in the amphitheater for a while. So a glassmaker who used to work right in this shop. Yep. Yeah, I think he did a few summers with us. Yep. So George has got the punty ready. He's going to pick up the red cup out of this pickup box. And then he's going to run over to the reheating oven to give it a quick reheat. So he stabs it up, sticks it up, pulls it out. It's going to look black or brown, but I believe this is a beautiful bright red. We're not going to see any of that bright red today because bright red, when it's hot, looks brown or black. And even when we put it into the annealing oven at 1,000 degrees, it's still going to look brown or black, and so we won't see that true red color until the shops post it online, and then you're going to say, wow, that's a beautiful red. Yep. Which one do you want closed? Close up some doors on this oven so that the heat stays in. George is going to make sure that's running straight and even. What do you need, George? Let me just grab Jesse's. George is just going to double check that it's still the right size. I don't know where his calipers went, but we'll just bring these over. Oh, there they are. They're going to do a little, sometimes they'll do like a price check, bring the two together and make sure it looks kind of right. Or sometimes they'll just bring it over and stick it right on. But you hear him kind of communicating. He's asking him if he's close, and George said no, not close. So Jesse got up, took a quick reheat. This will be a nice shot. They're going to stick it right on there. This is tricky. Yeah, one shot. Once you stick it on there, there's no taking it off. So no pressure. It's even no pressure. Just, especially when someone's on a microphone telling everyone just how tricky it is. It somehow becomes even a little trickier. But like I said, no problem. 30 plus years of experience, it'll stick right up. And even if it doesn't, we have ways of lining it right back up. We have ways of fixing it, so they'll at least get it close. You can see the lip of the one that George has. The cup is glowing. That's the heat we need to get it to stick. Sticks it on. George brings the back of the pipe up and a beautiful stick. What do you think? Nice. They'll cool it. A light tap, it pops right off. And there we have it. A beautiful Incalmo. And so now they're just going to start heating this up and making sure that seam is seamless. So this Bring the Heat demonstration, the shops really wanted to feature, the shops features many glass artists, local, international, and so they really wanted to focus on highlighting some of our glassmakers that are here every day doing demonstrations or working on the equipment. And so our hot glass programs, we do demonstrations here all the time, and 5 of our demonstrators and team members were part of this Bring the Heat program. They're actually, those videos, Brad and his team, the AV team, have put them online, and so you can find them on YouTube. You can find them on YouTube, and so if you have just, this is now the first you're hearing of these Bring the Heat demonstrations, you can go back to our YouTube channel and watch the ones we did earlier this summer if you'd like. And then when you're there, you're going to find a whole bunch of other videos that we've done in the past few years, especially during the pandemic. We did a lot of live streams when people weren't doing a lot of traveling and making it to the museum. We did some outreach with some live streams. So there's tons of videos of our team and guest artists blowing glass here in the amphitheater and at the studio. And this particular program is just, we want to shine a spotlight on the glassmakers of our glass team. Jesse Rasid is one of the newer members of our team. He came to us a few years ago, and he is our lead technician. So this shop is very, all of the equipment, the controls, it's very specific to glassmaking. It's not like, these aren't like ovens we have at home. They're very specific to glass blowing, and Jesse is very knowledgeable in fixing, repairing, and building. I think, and since he's been here, he's done so much. We're very lucky to have him on part of our team. He came, and one of the first things that our team needed to do was build an ancient-style wood-fired furnace. And so I think part of your interview, they said, Jesse, how do you think you can build from the ground up an ancient-style furnace, wood-fired furnace? A daub furnace. So this is a new term. Jesse uses this term daub. It's a mix of, what is it, clay, dung, and straw. But I think you skipped the dung. Yep, we don't need to completely replicate the ancient style. We don't have to be that historically accurate. So Jesse and Tom Ryder, the other technician, they built an ancient style wood-fired furnace. And the first wood-fired furnace that they built is on display up in the Innovations Gallery, so you can actually see it today. Not running, of course, but you can see it. It looks all cracked up, and the reason for that is as you turn up a wood-fired furnace, that material is going to crack a little bit, so it did become a little fragile. But he built a beautiful wood furnace. I got to work out of it, and it was an amazing little furnace. And yes, you can get a wood-fired furnace up to these temperatures. He put a thermocouple right in it, and sure enough, 2100 up it went. The tricky part was stoking it. So you had to throw in about 6 logs, 6 pieces of wood every 15 minutes. You also had to kind of time the glass blowing. But he took on the challenge and was very successful in making 2 versions of that wood-fired furnace. The first version was very similar to the ancient style furnace, and the second one was one we were going to run and burn all summer. So it was going to be off and on all summer. And so it kind of had to have a few adjustments made to make it a little less fragile. But it was still run with wood, but it had some reinforcements in it so that it didn't just kind of crack and crumble apart. All right, are you going to gather on this? George is going to gather on this. Nice.
I want to utilize my team.
Yep, you got to work smarter, not harder. So George is going to take a dip on this. This is our starter bubble. This is a very large starter bubble. Usually our starter bubbles are the size of a golf ball or a walnut with the shell. This one, size of a small watermelon. So I'm going to gather on this and make a nice large piece. So anyway, he maintains all the equipment, builds wood-fired furnaces. The list goes on, but he is also an excellent glassmaker. I think with this equipment, you kind of have to be a glassmaker because otherwise you'd be like, well, what do you need that for? And so he's very knowledgeable. He has many years of glassblowing experience, went to, the Massachusetts College of Art, where actually was introduced to glass in high school, then went to the Massachusetts College of Art, and then started a glass school of his own out in Boston. Yeah. NOCA, N-O-C-A. And so he's not only a very good glass maker, an excellent technician, but he is really good at teaching this process to people who want to learn or get better. I've seen him. We had a lot of interns here this summer, and he would always walk by when he was, doing something else, fixing equipment. He'd walk by and he'd see one of the glassmakers doing something not quite right or struggling to learn something, and he'd come in and give him a little one-on-one little extra help. And so he was very instrumental in getting our team working better and efficiently. So it was very nice to have his expertise for that as well. He teaches at the studio. I think Jesse is one of the busiest guys I know. I'm like, where do you find the time? He's like, I teach boxing lessons, I ride dirt bikes, I hang out with my family, I do this, I do that. And I'm like, when do you sleep? You must sleep at some point. So he does a lot of things and is very good at all of it. But he's teaching a class over at the studio, and someone said, I think Jesse told me, or no, somebody at the studio was congratulating him because the class sold out in 20 minutes, and I don't think that usually happens. So people were like waiting for the class to go online, and they booked it right up because they wanted to be in his class. So the museum was pretty proud of that. So George goes into the big pool of glass inside that furnace and comes out with a nice big gather. He's going to drip a little bit of it off. It's called a strip gather. So he strips a little bit of it off into this bucket, so it leaves just a nice thin coat on the surface. And then, of course, cool the pipe off because it is hot. You can see the steam coming off of it as he rolls this through that cold water, cooling this metal pipe off because, yes, if you're wondering, the pipes do get hot. So we'll just kind of dry that off. Now we should be able to hold it a little closer. You can see the discolored area of the pipe. That's the hot zone. That's where you don't want to grab a hold of that pipe, and it's one of the very first things you learn. I'm sure when Jesse teaches his class, they come in and the first thing you do is what to touch and what not to touch in the hot shop, and that's any metal surface or any metal tool. You never know what's going to be hot in the hot shop. A little more space on the marver, yep. So, yeah, even this big marver, it's not quite big enough. We're going to get some of these tools off. Right now we're using this as storage. We're going to clean this off and make sure that George or Jesse can roll this bubble on this cold metal shaping tool. And then heating up those metal tools or jacks just so they don't cool the glass as much. So they're rolling the tip of this. The tip of this is the first thing in the oven and the last thing out. It's also going to become the bottom of the vessel. So if we blow into this without cooling the tip of the bubble, it'll become too thin at the bottom. And so cooling this off will ensure that as he blows into this bubble, it will remain, it'll have a good thickness at the bottom so that it's stable and not too thin. So he goes all the way in, keeping everything nice and warm. Jesse will also use that newspaper pad to cool and shape the tip of the bubble. Do you want a shield or anything?
Okay for now.
Okay, let me know. So he cools and shapes the tip. They'll use a little bit of gravity. And he'll cut in a thin, weak line right off the head of the blowpipe. Now you want it?
Yeah.
See that when he pulled his arm away, that was, I know, because I've sat at that bench. He's getting away from the heat. His arm is hot. So we have these boards for shielding. Because you have to work fast, and if you're pulling your tool away because your arm is too hot, you're going to lose your heat. And he wants to squeeze this line down. That's where he's going to break the glass free from the blowpipe. The smaller, the tighter that is, the easier it'll break free. It's like the thin, weak lines in a chocolate bar that allow you to snap it apart easily and share it with your friends. That's what we want to happen. We want that to easily break apart on that line. You can see it's taken quite a bit. What you need? It's taking quite a bit of energy to turn this pipe. So George is going to jump in. Jesse's going to turn it. And they'll squeeze in that line. Again, utilizing the team. But this also allows them to let the glass stretch as it cools. So there's always a reason for the angle at which we hold the pipe or what we're doing. And most of the time when you're holding it up at that angle, we're letting gravity stretch and elongate it. George is blowing through the end of the pipe to inflate the bubble. For a piece this size, you do have to blow pretty hard. Most of the time, you have to blow pretty soft. If you're making just a standard size piece or an ornament, you don't have to blow too hard. But what do you think so far? Yeah. This is a beautiful piece. I can't wait for you to see the true colors. Not today, of course. Maybe not tomorrow, but maybe the next day we'll post this online. It's pretty similar. There's some different colors in that vase over there, but kind of similar to the vase you're seeing there. So they're going to blow this up a little further.
Hello, please.
So Jesse is what we call the gaffer. You might have heard this term. Gaffer, it's the person in charge, the person at the bench. So you can hear him saying blow or stop blowing. You want something to go under that? You want another newspaper?
So let's just heat here down, yes.
So he told George where he wants him to heat it. He said, heat from here down, please. So George knows to go in for a quick reheat and heat from the shoulder down. They'll probably blow it up or stretch it out. Either way, that's the area he wants to move. Still doing all right on questions? No questions. How heavy is it? Too heavy for me, I'll tell you that. George says it's real heavy. I'll tell you, the pipe itself weighs about 8 pounds. The glass on the other end, quite a bit. Now, if you can imagine, let's say a bowling ball is pretty heavy, right? If you hold a bowling ball, you pick it up and you hold it close to your center of gravity, it's going to feel heavy, but not real heavy. Now, if you pick that bowling ball up on a shovel and hold it far away from your center of gravity, it's going to feel a lot heavier. Now imagine if you had to turn the pipe to keep that weight turning. It's going to feel 10 times as heavy as it is. So a lot of times what happens is glassmakers make a really big piece in the hot shop and they're lugging it around and they're struggling to turn it, and then they come in and they open the ovens, they go to pick it up and they kind of like throw it over their head because they're expecting to like pick up this really heavy piece when in reality it was just heavier on the pipe. But this piece, George says is heavy. I'm going to take his word for it. I think it looks pretty heavy. These guys, they're strong, no problem. They like the challenge of working heavy and working with a lot of glass. Got lots of paddles. Shielding paddle, this is a real thin one. You don't want to use that one, it'll catch right on fire. Too little. This one's a nice thick one that he can use to flatten the bottom maybe. So they're just going to stretch that out, and he's going to use this wooden board to press on the very bottom. This is going to create a flat spot. The wooden board does catch right on fire. This glass is very hot. He's going to sit inside the bench, and he's going to use a newspaper pad. That kind of keeps the sides shaped up. There is a secret. You kind of have to hold your thumb over it. There's a little hole in the bottle, so you squeeze the bottle and you get a little. Where are the technicians? We need a new bottle. So we got the bottom nice and hot. I'll use that paper to kind of squeeze it down, flatten off the bottom. He's going to have George inflate it a little bit.
Stop.
Hot. This is hot. I'm supposed to be protecting Jesse from the heat, but I'm having a hard time doing that because my fingers are burning up. So he's going to stay on the side.
Okay, that's much better. Thank you.
Straighten up those sides. Flatten off the bottom. Now, the next step is to flip the whole thing around onto a solid rod called a punty. The punty is a little bit of glass on the end of a solid rod that will stick to the bottom of the piece, break it free from the blowpipe, and open up the top of the piece. So a temporary handle. So it goes in for a quick reheat. We have to maintain temperatures of over 1,000 degrees the whole time we're working. If we let any of this glass fall below these temperatures, the glass would cool too quickly, and that's when we start to see cracking and breaking happening. So right now, he's just waiting for George to make that punty, and he's going to be doing short reheats to keep everything nice and warm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so as glassmakers, we kind of develop this way of turning the pipe to A, not get injured, or to keep the pipe turning nice and even and making full rotations. So yeah, if you watch his hand, there's like all these kind of like movements that allow you to use the whole length of the rail just to make full rotations and keep everything running nice and even. Because not only do you have to turn the pipe, especially with a piece like this, you have to keep the back end of the pipe down. So you're kind of holding the weight down as you turn. So there's kind of like this. Speaking of which, I'm going to come hold the pipe down. Help out. Yep. So now he's got to lean over, keeping this pipe turning, the back end down will require a little extra help. He's going to stick that punty right in the center of the bottom of the piece. We'll run the two irons together, making sure everything stays lined up and centered. He'll cool it off so that when George takes it on the punty, it's not going to be flopping around like a floppy fish. Make sure it's nice and stiff. What do you need? You want another door? A few drops of cold water and a light tap. This should pop right off. There we have it. A beautiful transfer. A huge round of applause. And back into the oven. I got it. Take a break. Do you need water?
No, I'm good.
This is heavy. This is even hard for me to hold. I'm like kind of leveraging the weight. This is probably about 5 pounds on the end of the pipe just from the leftover. If you make a big piece on a small pipe, it'll bend, it'll flex, could break in half. But it's also hard to turn, and that has a little extra weight to it as well, so it doesn't, you don't have to push it down as much. It's gonna kind of hold its own weight. So now they're going to heat just the top of this. Open this up. We are able to see what's going on inside that oven from a camera. The camera sits right behind the oven looking through a little window of a special type of glass called fused silica, which was developed here in Corning in the 30s. It's the same type of glass that Corning gave NASA to use for the space shuttle's windshield. And because it's optically clear, it's one of the 2 high purity glasses that 3 scientists used for the core of optical fibers for fiber optics. Technology that was further developed here in Corning in the 70s. All right, so they're going to work outside the bench. So Jesse's standing outside the bench, and he's going to open it up with the blades of the jacks. And he'll use this wooden board to paddle the lip. Make sure the lip's going to stay nice and straight as he opens it right up. He's going to use a tool called a soffietta to puff up. There's a bigger one. There's a bigger one hanging on the... It's a straight one, but...
We're going to paper it down. Or I'll use that. Yep. I'll paper it and use that.
Okay.
Yes, please.
These tools are called soffiettas, and they have a cone shape, so you can stick it in any size opening, or not any size opening, but a variety of different size openings. And the opening just got a little too big. The soffietta went right inside. We call this a little paddle and a puff. So he's going to paddle the lip, make sure it's nice and straight, and then puff it up. Do you want me to puff it up? And he'll pop that in there and puff it up, puffing up the shoulders. Do that one more time. Okay, nice. So you leave it kind of rounded off. All right, so he says he's going to puff it up one more time and just kind of leave it rounded off like a nice dome, which will be a nice canvas for that beautiful pattern work.
That's good.
So he goes in for a quick reheat. He's going to puff up the top one more time.
Are you ready? Yep.
So he goes in, blowing, inflating it up. He'll use the paper to get it into the right shape. The jacks and a paddle. To get a nice, smooth opening.
Yep.
And just like that, we've got a beautiful vessel. What do you think? Very nice. Quick reheat. And now this piece has to go into our slow cooling annealing oven. Our annealing oven is kept at 966 degrees, which is the annealing temperature for the glass that we're using, that oceanside. And it will stay in that oven for about maybe 12 to 16 hours, give or take. Just going to make sure everything's right where he wants it. Keep a little heat on that punty. Yep.
Gonna heat the bottom, one glass bottom.
So to break the glass off of that punty, we're going to create a little thermal stress with water and a tap. So we want to make sure that it's nice and warm down there. It's not too cold. So he's just using that fluffy torch to warm it up. Because adding water to cold glass could send cracks shooting up the side. So we warm it up. That way, when he adds the water, it's going to be hot enough that it won't crack the bottom. So if you like the demonstration, like and subscribe all our social medias. Follow us and look for this piece in the upcoming days on our social media, the shops page, Instagram, and you can watch the full video on YouTube once we're finished. So it's moving around a little bit. They're going to let this cool off. We've got time. Sometimes there's always this kind of stressful feeling to say, let's get it away, but we're going to take our time. George has a set of, you want him to go under? A few drops of cold water. And a light tap. A few more drops of cold water. Light tap. This should pop right off. You want to fire polish the bottom? We can do it over here. We're going to fire polish away the sharp edge, and then we'll get this into our slow cooling oven for slow cooling and safekeeping till tomorrow morning. Into the oven. There it is. A beautiful vase. It's Jesse Rasid, everyone. Bringing the heat here at the museum. George Kenner, the whole team. On behalf of the museum, we'd like to thank you for visiting us. Thanks for tuning in online, and be sure to check in with us about upcoming events and check out this piece. Enjoy the rest of your visit, and thanks for coming in today.